There are very few villains in movie history that are as repugnant and detestable as Bear Bailey from uh, from the movie Obsession. I went to go see it last weekend, and I went in. I went into it not really knowing what to expect. I was thinking it was going to be, to be honest with you, a very paint by the numbers type of deal. You have the crazy girl that's going around killing people, and and this something that's kind of played for laughs. I wasn't expecting it to be as dark and as serious as it was. I left the theater. I don't want to say I've left the theater feeling almost as violated as Nikki could. I don't think anybody could, but there was this violation, this feeling of violation that came with viewing that. Even though they set up the movie to be seen through the eyes of the antagonist of the evildoer, you you couldn't sympathize with Bear. In the first maybe 10 to 15 minutes of the movie, yeah, you could. I mean, he's a young dude that's awkward, and he doesn't know how to talk to women, and you know what man hasn't experienced that, not being able to have the confidence to communicate with with the opposite sex. However, you learn pretty quick that Bear is a male. He's not a man. He's amongst other things, he's a little sniveling coward. But he's also what happens when evil meets being a sniveling coward. It doesn't look like this nerdy, like, evil genius that wants to build a death ray, or something that is overtly evil. Is more subtle than that. It's more disarming, because you realize that the danger that lies in him, for one thing, is the fact that nobody would ever suspect him of being a predator. Nobody would ever suspect him of being ruthless, being sociopathic. But if you think about his character, and if you are actually paying attention to his character, he really has no remorse, no regard for anybody else except himself. I know I just sounded very ghetto saying that. Forgive me. I just ran about 4 or 5 miles. Uh, but yeah, he doesn't care about anybody, and what I noticed throughout the entire movie is that he's talking about Nikki loving him. The whole thing that kicks off the entire story is him wishing for Nikki to love him more than anyone in the world, but you never hear him ever say that he loves her. And somebody had on YouTube had said, had asked, the audience, do you think that Bear loved Nikki or loved the idea of Nikki? I believe that he loved neither the idea of Nikki or Nikki. I don't think he cared about Nikki. I think Nikki was his to sate his own ego, and he wanted a human masturbatory device. He didn't want a human being. I don't believe he even wanted the idea of a human being. He didn't want to be in a relationship with another sentient life form. He wanted essentially a doll, that a plaything. It sort of reminds me of a much darker trope version of, you have the nerd. I think this was even an episode in Batman Beyond where you had this guy that was a little short, fat, round nerd, and he wanted a beautiful girlfriend just for the sake of having a beautiful girlfriend, and so he goes and has a android made in the form of a beautiful, beautiful young woman, and that went to hell in a handbasket. But that was over 20 years ago, and things like that. I mean, obsession is nothing, isn't really new as far as the concept goes. However, the way that the audience is meant to see it is very new. If this was, say, in 2005, 2006, it would have been played for laughs. So you have this awkward nerd that doesn't know how to string together two sentences when talking to a woman, and he goes and he builds himself a girlfriend, or he goes and makes a girlfriend, and then hilarious hijinks ensues from there. In the case of the Batman Beyond episode, it was it was a element of danger, but it was still fun. Obsession is not fun. Obsession is not entertaining. I don't think that it's meant to entertain in the traditional sense. I think it's meant to enlighten more than it is to truly entertain. It's taking I don't want to say trope. What would you call the nice guy phenomenon? The guy who is trying to manipulate his way into a woman's pants by being nice. You wouldn't call it a trope, a tactic, the nice guy tactic, and it's showing you the depths of depravity that an individual will go to satisfy first his lust and then satisfy his ego. Because, circling back to my original point, if Bear really loved Nikki, for one thing, he would have never forced her to give this false approximation of love. Then, even if he had fallen to the notion of actually trying to force her to love him through this magical means, if he truly loved her, he would have given his life to ensure that she was free. If you truly love somebody, you'll lay down your life for them. If you love a person, a thing, idea, concept, group, whatever it is, if you truly love it, there's nothing you wouldn't do for it. There's nothing that you wouldn't give up for it. So I can't honestly say that he loved Nikki. I don't even think that he really even gave a shit about Nikki. To be honest with you, I think that Nikki was more for him. Nikki was for him, and he didn't really truly care about Nikki's welfare at all. I believe that he was so obsessed with getting what he wanted and having what he wanted, like it was a toy. Like it was a PlayStation 5 on Christmas. Honestly, I think an individual like this would have more regard for a PlayStation 5 than a girlfriend. And so everybody in his circle was disposable. Ian was disposable, Sarah was disposable, and Nikki, most of all, was disposable. She truly was a walking, talking fleshlight in his eyes. The only thing that he didn't account for was how erratic and how violent she would become in her devotion to him. As Curry Barker stated, the willow gives you exactly what you wish for. He wanted her to love him more than anything in the world, and she did. And I believe if he was willing to, pretty much stay in his house and never leave her side, there would have never been a problem. But he never brought into the account his own narcissism and his own love for self. And so that is what ended up not only undoing him, it ended up undoing everybody that was involved with him. And not every story is meant to have a happy ending. For it being cast and directed by Zoomers, it's very mature, very timely. It's thought-provoking. I believe that Obsession is a film that is going to be talked about for years to come. I think that it would be a miscarriage of justice if it's not even considered for an Oscar nomination. But yeah, like I said before at the beginning, I've never seen a villain that all at once can project this sense of harmlessness that lures you in with such abject harmlessness, but yet be so venomous. By the time everybody talks about the part where he says, what's so wrong with being with me, or is being with me so wrong? When she tells him when she begs him to kill her. No, when she begs him to kill her, and he asks her, is being with me so wrong? At that point, but before that point for me, he had already surpassed the piece of shit mark. And everything that he did after that just further solidified it even more, and to a point to where I didn't think it was even possible. Everybody has this notion that the villain, has at least some code of honor, or at least they're tough, or at least they're willing to go to extraordinary lengths to get what they want. Bear was kind of sort of that, but Bear also was a coward, and he was a sociopath. And if this was just any other movie, if this was just your another horror movie, it would have just ended with him dying horribly, and I think that the audience would have been satisfied with that, would have been painted by the numbers. But this movie was meant to shed light on something that many people, especially the male side of the human species, takes lightly. And they did a good job with it. And as far as Curry Baker is concerned, Barker, I keep calling him Baker. Barker is concerned. I look forward to seeing what he has in the future. That's it for this video, and let me know what you think. Did I leave anything out? Did I gloss over anything? Was I not detailed enough in the description? See you when I see you.